say, the Harbortown Golf Links, where tomorrow is the Pro-Am, and then Thursday, yet another edition of the Heritage gets underway down here on beautiful Hilton Head Island. Perfect weather today, a little breezy. Actually, I say perfect. Golfers might not like this, Elijah. I remember reporting back to you either last Thursday or Friday, I forget which day, for a bit, and there was hardly any wind here. And I know I've used the term a few times of late, but those guys were shooting darts without wind, man. These are tiny little greens down here relative to a lot of courses, and scores were dropping like flies, which was fun to watch for fans. But looking forward to doing this again. How are things in the capital city this afternoon?
Oh, another beautiful day here, as you would expect. Good. It's phenomenal.
Good. I know you want me to be on video, so we're live radio here. Elijah, I think, has sent me a link to make sure that I get off. So I will get that on here shortly, and I'll show y'all exactly. Like, it's kind of cool where I'm able to be set up, and believe me, I am very grateful to those who have allowed me to do this. I am adjacent to 18, but I can't see the green because I am behind these giant grandstands where I'm going to guess, Elijah, that tickets probably might cost like $10 or $12.
At least. If you throw the word at least in there.
Per minute. Yeah, per minute. No, these are, I think one of these says like a BMW Skybox. I don't know if that means you have to own a BMW, but that would get Dave in. Dave?
That would. That would.
Yeah,
if you just have to have Dave. Proof of BMW ownership, then Dave is perfectly qualified to hop in there.
In fact, Dave, just drive on down here and see what they do. I'd like to see if they can get people in, but I'll show you all that in just a little bit. But John Whittle's coming up here. We'll talk some Carolina baseball. It's obviously gone, as we said yesterday, just seemingly from bad to worse. You get some guys back and then you get some guys hurt. It's one thing after another. It's not excuses, because I don't think even with the amount of injuries we've seen or things like that, Elijah, that there's a lot of excuse or reason behind a conference ERA that is approaching 9. It's just hard to believe that a South Carolina baseball team is going through some of what they're going through. And then this weekend, a 17-0 loss followed by a 15-12 loss, which doesn't sound bad on paper, as we said, or look bad on paper. But when you know what happened and you were up by 10 in the 6th inning, then it feels a little bit worse. But John will give us the latest. And, I suppose any kind of fan halfway through a conference slate wants to at least find out a way to salvage something, to go on some kind of hot streak. You try to find those little slivers of hope, Elijah, but boy, at this point in time, if I want to use like an hourglass analogy, there's just a couple of grains left in this thing,
Yeah, especially in the hope department and the hourglass labeled hope. It's pretty bleak right now, unfortunately. And who knows, maybe one good series can help you turn it around to salvage something. And but that's what this team's in right now, is kind of season salvaging mode, right? Like avoiding.
Well, you'd just like to win a series, wouldn't you?
Win a series,
just win a series.
To hang your hat on, and they don't have that part of the season to hang their hat on. They really don't. I mean, no notable series wins. Really every series that you've played in the SEC, you've lost, and some of them have been defined by how poorly fashioned some of those losses came in, whether it be blowouts or blown leads. That's not ideal. And at this point, you just have to salvage something this year, right? I mean, you're at the point now, it's like, let's get us something to, for however this operation looks next year, there's as much momentum going into it as possible to try to fix it.
Yeah, because this is going to be, look, I'm not one. I don't want to go, like hyperbolic here, but if you look back, I mean, when has there been a more, not even important, right? I mean, I want to go beyond important to like a more crucial offseason of recruiting than what South Carolina's going to have, almost regardless of what's going to happen the rest of this season. Because as we talked about yesterday, and nobody wants to hear this, but the facts are the facts, all right? Again, taking Missouri out of the equation because of the way that, again, I'm not knocking Missouri. Now, we explained this yesterday, Elijah, but for those that didn't hear us talking about it, I'm not knocking Missouri when I say what I'm about to say, but in relation to the other 15 schools, it's pretty obvious that Missouri just doesn't put as much into baseball, nor does its fan base have the same fervor for baseball that virtually every other school in the SEC has. And even the Johnny-come-latelys, of like Kentucky and Tennessee that have now realized this is fun. And if we put some money into it, we can be good. And now you're seeing the fruits of that labor. South Carolina, the point I'm making is last in line now. And that just to think about, just not all that long ago, you were literally on top of the mountain for several years. And now you're looking up at it. And trying to figure out, man, can I climb that? And it's just that's where things are right now. Like I say, it's harsh. It's a harsh reality, but it's smacking Carolina fans in the face right now of just how far things have dropped and how much work Coach Maneri and now Jeremiah Donati have to do. Honestly, Elijah, just in the next couple of seasons to get yourself into the middle of the SEC, to maybe get back on a line with, Mississippi and Kentucky and Oklahoma, much less where Vandy and Arkansas and Tennessee and those kind of teams reside. I know Vandy's not where Vandy typically wants to be, but I mean, you saw South Carolina play Arkansas and Tennessee, and how far away you are. And then you saw what happened last weekend against an A&M team that isn't very good, and you got humbled. So a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. And again, nobody wants to hear it, but facts are facts at this point.
Yeah. Again, this offseason, like, you've also learned from a talent perspective just how far behind you are in terms of just depth and, top end of your rosters. And that's one thing this offseason is really going to be, is getting you a core of players. And you have a couple of freshmen who have played well right now, but at the same time, you don't want to be in a position to where you're relying on those freshmen to be some of your best players. But if you can get a good cornerstone of players coming in and be able to at least contend, that's a step. It's not, I know in today's era of college athletics, you can turn things around in a year, but this is one of those, it might not be just a 1 year type of fix compared to how much others in this league have definitely passed you by.
Yeah, it's just, again, hard to imagine that we're here. Let's put it that way. But we'll talk to John coming up in just a little bit and see more of what he has to say about just how things kind of got here at this point and what can happen moving forward for the Gamecocks in the short term. And again, we're not talking longer term. I know some of you have already hit us on Twitter and on the text line about longer term future decisions, and it's not that we're just thinking that's a silly thing to discuss, but it's just not the time. There's a season to finish and some things to be done. So we'll have all those necessary conversations, I promise you, as the situation dictates. In the meantime, you were at Shane Bieber's press conference today as we get closer to the spring game Friday night, where Elijah will be a full paid assistant coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks. We're looking forward to that.
Excited to see what my day rate's going to look like.
Well, and I'm disappointed that didn't become a bigger part of today's press conference. I'm not sure where the disconnect was or why you weren't at the podium, but
should have been.
Yeah, I mean, I
questions.
So maybe if I see Coach tomorrow, I mentioned to Terry and Tyler earlier, I will be out on the course tomorrow for the Pro-Am, at least for a little bit. Honestly, I didn't even see the tee times yet. I just saw there's a long list, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't follow all these people, right? So who do I want to? There's some notables down here. Shane's going to be one of the more popular ones, I promise you. But I'll see. He goes early, from what I understand. That's what I was told, that he's going early. So, but I don't know exactly what time. But I'll try to find out, and I'll put in a good word. I mean, I think it's all going to be good. But again, I'm disappointed that you weren't a bigger part of today's presser.
I know. And I guess maybe that is, for the coaches meeting, as, a fellow coach myself. I mean, having to talk, game strategy out publicly, can be, it could impact what we do on Friday. Right. And so keeping it close to the vest, that's what we do in the SEC. That's what we do.
Yeah. All right. I can see you right now. Can people on the video on the YouTube channel see me at this point in time?
Yes, they can.
Okay. Well, then I want to show everybody. Let me be careful here.
Your video
so I don't
feed is live, and you're using your phone.
Knock this over.
Don't drop
yeah, I'm
anything.
using my phone. It's easier to use my phone. Let me stand up. I'm going to show everyone so y'all can understand when I say I am in the shadow of the grandstand. Hang on here so I don't break anything. So there you go. How's that? Can you?
Oh,
can
that's
you tell?
good. Yeah. Oh, you were there.
Yeah.
You were there.
So that's the grandstand, and over there. And then again, earlier there was some kind of seminar going on. Let's like a bunch of volunteers, but who do amazing work, and we're glad those people like to come down here and do this. It's a fun week. But anyway, there you go. That's the visual. That's where David Dare. Yeah, that's where David Dare can come. Again, apparently it's a BMW sponsored thing, but if you, I don't know that for sure. So please do not quote me if you own a BMW and don't have tickets.
And you show up and say, well, Jay Phillips from 107.5 The Game in Columbia told me that this was fine. All I needed was this to get in. So I'm here to enjoy this sporting event.
I just want to see Dave come down in his BMW and just see if he can get in. Maybe just have Dave drive straight onto the course. You know, they won't stop you.
Straight onto the course. Pass all the guardrails, everything. Yeah. Just straight onto the course.
Or
you can actually park it. If you have a BMW, you can just park it on the green.
That's right. Right off the green here, man.
Some great parking spots available.
There. Right by those steps I just showed you. They're right now. You know,
yeah,
don't worry about the several people that appear to be armed that are around the course. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. So it'll be fine. All right, we got a lot to do. Braves won last night, man.
They won a baseball game.
Yeah, can they just stay in a foreign country? Well, if they win again tonight, can I just petition Rob Manfred to have the Atlanta Braves just stay in Canada as long as possible if they go on a 2-game win streak? For the rest of the time.
Yeah, I mean, their American win-loss record still isn't where you need to be.
It's not good, but they're that's right. 1-0 on foreign soil, and if I'm not mistaken, and I don't think I am I? The Braves have yet to put together a win streak.
Yes, correct. They've yet to stack them. They've won some games, but they have yet to stack them. Which in a 162 game regular season, you need to maybe stack a few of those.
It'd be nice. At some point, I do think the Braves are going to go, on a 5, 6, 7 game win streak.
They definitely will, especially when Acuna comes back. Yeah, and Strider's back.
Strider is, as Joey Tribbiani would say, Spencer Strider is supposedly starting tomorrow night.
See, that's step one. Getting Acuna back is step 2. And then you have the gang together, and then you have yourself a pretty good baseball team. They'll be fine.
I know Ronald was with the team in Atlanta last week, and then they went to Canada, and he flew out to Los Angeles for like the final checkup with his orthopedic surgeon on his knee. Snit certainly made it sound like it was all routine. So should be getting close. And I be
hoping.
I guess they'll send him to play for the Stripers or the Strippers, depending on
Strippers. Yeah, depending on if anybody
which version of Elijah Campbell is. That's right. Is doing it.
Which version of Elijah Campbell is controlling your broadcast copy?
All right, we'll get into some football for you on the other side. The great Tyler Head has cut up a lot of sound for us. And again, Elijah will have more details on what Coach Beamer had to say. And then coming up bottom of the hour, our good friend John Whittle will join us from the Big Spur, talking the ails of Carolina baseball and what can be done to try and turn it around second half of the conference season. This is the Postgame Show live from Columbia and Hilton Head. Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, ready to help you and your family out with any and all of your banking needs. And as the country is in, an interesting economic time, you want to make sure that your money is secure and that it can still grow for you. And right now at Palmetto Citizens, if you're putting money away, they want to reward you for saving. You can log on to palmettocitizens.org and find out about a bunch of different programs that they've got. When you start saving, they start rewarding. But whether it's savings account, checking, credit cards, car loans, student loans, listen, right now in this rate environment, anything you can do for less that keeps more money in your pocket, that's good for you. That's good for your family. My wife and I have been members at Palmetto Citizens for many years now, and I do say this very seriously. So impressed with how easy it was to get everything started at Palmetto Citizens. 14 convenient locations across the Midlands and always online at palmettocitizens.org. Nineteen minutes after 3 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Elijah's back home in the Herndon Chevy Studios. Now it's my turn to travel for a little bit. Elijah's been all over the place covering basketball. I am down on Hilton Head this week covering the Heritage. Officially gets underway on Thursday. Signature event. I think the only he's already announced it even before he won the Masters, but I think the only really big name that won't be here this week is Rory McIlroy. Sorry, Elijah, I was just looking to my left. I couldn't tell who that was, but a couple of golfers just went by. They're obviously playing practice rounds, and I couldn't tell who they were. But
well, I know it's not Rory McIlroy.
It's not Rory. It's not. But a lot of Scotty's going to be here. Spieth is going to be here. JT's going to be here. Schauffele. Shane Lowry. I could go on and on, but it's a signature event. So all the big names will be here. I know Jason Day is going to be here. Ricky Fowler is going to be here. So it's going to be fun. But last year, I was just so busy. I told Elijah, on Friday, the Friday of last year's tournament, I walked about 11 miles. I was sending him videos as quickly as I could film them and send them and hope to have internet signal. And then by the time I was finally ready to do call-ins, Thursday is a great day here when this tournament opens. But y'all, I'm serious. Those of you who've been know what I'm talking about. If you've ever been on Thursday and then on Friday, the numbers here swell times 3 or 4 on Friday relative to Thursday. So you get an official round of golf on Thursday, but the crowd on Friday is so much bigger. And I'm still, maybe this year, Elijah, I put they had a little suggestion box on the way out of Harbortown. So I put in the little card and said, please have better cell phone service next year. I don't know if they're going to listen.
Or if they
I dropped it in the little box. Yeah, well, at the end, they probably, I don't know. I'll do it. Do places even read whatever goes in their little comment boxes?
Probably not. They have it there to make you feel good, to make it feel like your concerns are getting heard, when really they just take you back out to the trash can.
But I was sending as much as I could and then trying to call in. And I finally had to just basically go away from the course. Like yards and yards and yards away from the course to call Elijah last year. So, fingers crossed. That was me. That was fingers crossed. I didn't do anything else, I promise.
No giving the camera the bird. That'd be great on the stream, on the YouTube stream.
Well, I mean, I can if you want me to. That's not against the law. But anyway, football wise, one of the things, and I'll let you fill us in on some of the things that Shane talked about today, but I am curious if what the biggest questions came up, or what the ball club feels may still be their most unsettled position, even come Saturday or Friday, and I guess Saturday after the spring game, in terms of what still may need to be done, both in the portal or just further summer development.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I asked about the offensive line, because the offensive line is so much of great team offensive line play comes from really good chemistry with everybody on the offensive line. So it's that whole group moving as one and as a unit, right? So that's one of the things I was really curious about. And then I asked about, today is how some of that's coming along. And he goes, well, since, not as fully healthy, the offensive line like we'd like to be, but that's given other guys opportunities to get in front of coaches and be able to show what they can do with other offensive linemen. But there's a lot of mixing and matching going on right now, that once they have a better picture of who's going to be starting in full, then they're going to see a lot more time together. But I think there's just a lot of information gathering from coaches on the offensive line. And I feel like on the defensive side of the ball in general, because of all the players you lose, it's kind of a similar process, right? You're just gathering data on players, how they practice, how they look, against the opposing offense, and trying to come up with where everybody fits in kind of best there. And there are definitely a couple of guys that are going to get some run on Friday who they're paying attention to see how they play underneath the lights in a pretty well simulated game environment, right? It's about as close you can get to a game before you actually kick off games. So they're going to use that as, to use a term that I know Shane hates, a data point in terms of mapping out who's going to be a part of this roster and who's going to be seeing of the field a lot come fall.
I feel like he talked about not liking the term data point last year and then used it like right away.
Oh yeah.
Without meaning to.
That was
pretty funny.
Not his favorite term. I do love the term data point. But
sometimes you just gotta. Yeah, I mean, it's just, or analytics. People don't like the use of the word like optics and things like that, but sometimes they just make the most sense, and they're just the most efficient way to get the point across. For me, we've talked about this seriously. You mentioned, the losses on defense. It's up front on both sides, but one of the things that anytime I look, I know there's no depth chart yet, and Shane didn't want to get into the depth chart part of things, but even looking at the roster, no, I know, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. We'll get one ultimately, and again, being funny and fair at the same time and serious, Shane is far better with depth charts than his predecessor. You'll hear me say that again, probably later this week and many times through the summer and into the fall.
By nature of him actually changing it throughout the year.
Yeah. But we all appreciate that. Yeah. I just think it's just a depth chart is something for those of us who aren't around the guys every day to really be able to just quickly reference and understand. Eventually, you can begin to memorize some of these things and put it into the short term. But the point I'm making here is, even if you just look at the spring roster right now, what you see, Elijah, is experience. I mean, you really do. There is depth and there is experience. I mean, most notably, guys, let's just take the offensive line. Again, guys like Tree Babalade and Trevon Ball, Marky Anderson, Kaysen Henry. You know, these are guys that have been around. I know Kaysen started a lot last year. You know, Marky was hurt, but you know, Tree and Tro have they've had their time. Whether they were supposed to or not doesn't matter anymore because they did. You know, I mean, no, they weren't supposed to a couple of years ago, but the situation and the circumstance dictated it. So now they've been there, and then in a year where they were able to develop. And now it's their time. It's their turn. So, and the guys behind them now have had their opportunities. So, you know, I really do see. I don't know how it'll turn out. I make no predictions yet on anything, but I do see experience depth on both sides of the line, and I think that's a big encouragement relative to just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And the more bodies you have there that are playable, the better you are. And it's common sense. And I think we all know exactly what it looks like whenever you don't have enough experience in the offensive line and injuries happen, because they're going to happen because it's football. And 2023 was the perfect example of that. But the options they have, and that's the one luxury they have when it comes to the offensive line, is that you've got a lot of options. You got a lot of guys that have proven some ability, like Tree, for one. I love using his example here because obviously, you know, you go from playing a whole lot your freshman year out of necessity to basically being redshirted the next season. But Josiah Thompson goes down the Vanderbilt game. Tree Babalade comes in there and you don't skip a beat, right? He did exactly what was asked of him. And this might be a similar position this year. Let's just say he doesn't start for purposes of this hypothetical, say he doesn't start. You know who you can trust if somebody goes down or someone's not performing the way they should at any offensive line position? You can trust Tree Babalade to go in there and be able to take care of business because you've seen what he can do. You have a large sample size of him. You know exactly what the kid's about. And you've put him in situations before where it's sink or swim. And he's had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way of being an offensive lineman in the SEC. But that is valuable experience. In Tro as well. Those two guys, having that wealth of experience is going to matter a ton. That's why it was also important when you brought in guys in the portal, guys who played either a bunch of different positions or played a lot of college football. So it makes the Boaz Stanley addition so intriguing. Not only has that guy played a lot of college football, he's played a lot of college football on an offensive line at multiple positions. So if somebody's better at center and you think you can maximize him at one of the guard or tackle positions, you have a chance to be able to do that. Like, I think what they've done in terms of bringing in players through the transfer portals provide that offensive line with a little more versatility and that while keeping that D1 football experience that's so important in that same room with all that you lost from last year.
We'll have more from Elijah on what Coach Beamer had to say. Let you hear from Coach Beamer himself. Plus, yesterday, Mike Shula and Clayton White spoke, so we've got a little bit of sound from the coordinators as well. So plenty of spring football coming up for you in the second hour of the program. But on the other side of the break, as promised earlier, our very good friend John Whittle of the Big Spur with the latest around Carolina baseball. Just a nearly unthinkable weekend unfolded a couple of days ago in College Station. Where do the Gamecocks go in the second half of the SEC slate? We'll talk to John about that and more when the postgame show returns. It's time to talk a little Carolina baseball. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Split team today. Again, after several junkets out of town for Mr. Campbell, yours truly now away from the capital city for a bit down here on Hilton Head for this week's Heritage. Looking forward to doing more of that tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. But right now, some Gamecock baseball with our good friend John Whittle. We always appreciate John's time. And he, of course, on the beat for the Big Spur. We could spend hours at this point, Mr. Whittle, and we don't have it, just trying to figure out what's going on. I suppose a John Whittle, maybe nutshell version, explanatory bit to fans on how we got where we are with Carolina baseball. It seems almost unthinkable that beyond Missouri, South Carolina is now seen as the at least currently the worst program in the SEC, and that's not something fans would have ever thought.
It's unimaginable. And, I was hoping we'd get to go through our favorite golfers who were playing down there at the Heritage. I was hoping you would name, Lee Jansen and BJ Singh and Bernard Longer and a few of those guys. But, you didn't get that far down the list. But no, it's Gamecock baseball's in a bad place right now. And, I went back and listened to Paul Maneri's opening press conference the other day, and he said, I'm not taking over a program in the doldrums. We can add a couple of pieces and go out there and compete. This first year, I've got a 1-year plan, and this time a year ago, South Carolina was ranked number 20 in the country. Just went down to Florida, took 2 out of 3 in Gainesville, ended up climbing up as high as 13th and being projected as the number 12 national seed by D1 Baseball and Baseball America, and that was after 8 weeks of SEC play. That was in May. That wasn't in March. That was in May when this program was at that place. And this program now is so far off of that. This program has fallen so far from this time last year. Really since this time in June. It's indescribable.
And of course, a lot of program collapses like this don't happen overnight. Sometimes these can be pretty slow burns. How much of the trouble are we seeing on the field right now, John? Maybe a result of things that happened or did not happen during the offseason when the coaching change happened?
Certainly some of it had to do with what happened last offseason. But South Carolina. They missed on a few guys early in the portal because of the coaching change, but that's just part of it. That's just part of making a coaching change. But this program had about 3, 4, 5 times the amount of NIL money this year as it did last year. There were some promises that had to be made to get this group in here to coach, and there was a lot of extra investment made into this team that has been made in previous teams. And, that's as damning to me as anything else is what all was put into this to get this result. And I don't think anybody was under the illusion that this team was going to be competing for championships this year. Like me personally, I had South Carolina down in a 10, 11, 12 range in the SEC coming into this year. But this team has underachieved so much over the course of this year. We're in the back half of SEC play now. The year's 2/3 of the way over. Like, you are what you are at this point, and they're way off of where they should be.
Talking to John Whittle about Gamecock baseball. Carolina has the Citadel tonight. They'll host Mississippi this weekend at Founders Park. Just a couple of numbers that can set the scene, John, and you can go in more detail, but conference numbers only. And I'll be general here, but I think Carolina's conference ERA is approaching 9. I think 8.64 is if I remember correctly yesterday. Opponents are in the 4s. So there's that. And then OPS, is a terrific measurement these days. South Carolina's OPS is about 200 points lower than its opponents in conference play. You want your OPS for generally speaking in college to be around 900. Carolina's is in the 700s, and their opponent's a little bit over 900. That tells us a lot about where this team is, John. But the pitching numbers, especially the control numbers, they're beyond alarming in terms of just how damaging it's been for this team.
It is, and there hasn't been improvement year over year with so many of these guys, and some of these guys that you brought in. You brought in 3 of the top 10 JUCO pitchers in the country, and none of those guys are hitting the mark, hitting the expectation, and there's a lot of disconnect over there in between the players and that coaching staff, and certainly on the pitching side of things. I remember back in 2022 when South Carolina went into that season knowing it was a couple of arms short, went into that fall, forget the season, knowing they were a couple of arms short. They lost Julian Bosnick before the season. They lost their opening weekend rotation was Will Sanders, James Hicks, Josiah Seitler. By the end of week 2, James Hicks and Josiah Seitler were out for the year. And that was left with Will Sanders. You had 2 guys in your bullpen who were reliable that whole season. And that was a freshman Matthew Becker, and that was a redshirt freshman Cade Alston. And somehow Justin Parker in his first year had that staff at a 6 ERA in conference. And we're sitting here with looking at a staff that had so many more pieces, so much fewer injury issues, and they're at 8-6-4. It should be it's got to be embarrassing for that coaching staff because they're not getting out of these players what they need to get out of them. There's so much more talent in there than what they've shown so far.
And with the pitching, especially, John, like a lot of it just seems very fundamental. I mean, you give up 30 plus free passes over the weekend, and that's not going to A, be good enough to win any game, B, get, good enough to be competitive in games, right? It took 12 runs to be able to be competitive in a game when you also give up a lot of free passes. But how much of this is just missing out on maybe some of the fundamental things, like just not walking a ton of batters or hitting batters?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some issues probably from a mechanical standpoint. I think a lot of it's from a mindset standpoint. I mean, I'll give you one example, and you look at that collapse in the ninth inning on Friday or Saturday against Texas A&M. Caleb Jones came in with a 1-run lead and no outs. Like forget about the first part of it. He came in with a 1-run lead. No out. So just pretend like you're coming in a 1-out save or a 1-run save situation. He goes out there, gets a weak ground ball, his first batter. Then his second batter is Jace Lavalette, one of the best hitters in the country, 61 career home runs. A dude. He gives up a bloop single to center. You know what? Fine. A weak contact center, one of the best hitters in the country. Okay. Next guy up, killed you all weekend, strikes him out on 5 pitches. Then what happens? Paul Maneri comes out for a mound visit. Why? Why is he coming out for a mound visit? He hasn't come out for a mound visit all year except to change a pitcher. He comes out for a mound visit. What happens? 9 straight balls. Walk 2 hitters on 4 pitches. Throw another ball. Throw a strike. Throw another ball, and then another grand slam home run. Like what? He wasn't throwing balls. What are you coming out there for? He just struck out a dude. He's got 2 outs and 3 hitters. Like what are you doing? There's a disconnect there, and it's. To me, I can't put this on players because to me, coaching is getting the most you can out of players, and they're not. And that's on the field. That's off the field. It's getting the most out of players, and it's not happening.
Well, then, John, on that note, there's still a half a conference slate to go, plus however many opportunities you may get to play at the SEC tournament. But if all you say is where things are right now, what's that piece of something to cling on to for this fan base to say that there is some way to turn it around and try to win, say, 9 of your last 15 conference games, which almost seems unthinkable, but at least it's plausible. But what do people hold on to right now?
Well, I think you got to, if your goal is the NCAA tournament, you've got to figure out a way to, you feel good about 11 victories in the second half of SEC play. So going 11-4, that puts you at 13-17. You feel reasonably good about making the NCAA tournament at that point. Can this team go 11-4 in the league? I don't think so. Not with where where things are right now. I mean, your best chance of making the NCAA tournament is by winning the SEC tournament. You know, South Carolina's got bad juju there, but Paul Maneri's won the thing 6 times. So
Yeah.
maybe Paul Maneri could bring some of his SEC tournament magic here. But, you know, here's the thing, and I know folks want to have a little bit of an eye towards the future. You've got to win some games, because if you go, let's just say the record's the same the back half. If you go 4-26 in SEC play, who wants to come? Who wants to come here from the transfer portal? Your job becomes infinitely more difficult. You know, ask Lamont Paris next time you have him on whether it was easier to get guys from the portal last year after the NCAA tournament berth, or this year after finishing where they did in the league. Like, when you get players in the portal, yeah, they want some cash, but they want to have a chance to win too. And if you go 4-26 and there's not much hope, you know, to be a winner, you pick somewhere else. You go to Auburn. You know, Auburn's in the mid pack of the SEC. Ole Miss, you know, you pick one of those teams where you're getting a similar offer from. You know, South Carolina's going to have to way overpay guys if you're that bad when it comes to the transfer portal. And hey, this revenue share thing, that's going to have a real impact. South Carolina and every other school is going to be paying way less for baseball players next year than they were this year. So, you know, this thing is going to have a major effect on next year too, and the caliber of players that they can recruit. So you've got to figure out a way to get to 9 or 10 wins in the conference just to have a shot at being competitive in the transfer portal market.
Good stuff as always, sir. We appreciate it. Tough times for sure. We'll check in here real soon. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
You bet. That's John Whittle. John M. Whittle on Twitter, bigspur.com. This is the Postgame Show. All right, welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Thanks, as always, to our good friend John Whittle for joining us. Comments from someone who, in my opinion, knows as much about South Carolina's baseball program as anybody that lives and breathes. And I mean that quite sincerely. I've known John a long time. Those of you who are, whether you're a regular listener of our station or any other things that John does, and certainly John's daily work with the Big Spur, he calls it like he sees it, and he is so in tune with what happens over there. And again, Elijah, it's like some of the things that I said earlier. I don't want people to think that we're here to start beating up on anything, but the results speak for themselves, man. And I think that's John's point, and then when it seems like you're, like, I remember we talked to John a lot, obviously, but I remember a few weeks ago when you and I asked him what he thought of the lineup changes, when I think it was when Nathan and Ethan got dropped down a little bit. I want to say
going
before
into the
Mississippi
State,
before the state series. And, I don't like it. Why you want to mess with it? And then you find out a couple of days later from the head coach, in so many words, probably shouldn't have done that because Nathan wasn't seeing the same pitches he sees in the 1 hole as he was seeing in the 3 hole. They were basically trying to pitch around him, and then they were going to work against Petrie. And again, ironically, they won the only game in conference play where those guys hit 3-4. But nevertheless, Paul even told us that following Monday that Nathan was just seeing too many sliders and too many things out of the zone in the 3 hole, and he wanted to put him back where he was making more contact, which makes sense. But, as John said too, why mess the good thing the other day with Caleb? But look, I don't know how much of this is a talent issue. I don't know how much of this is a coaching issue. It's an all of the above and then some. And I know a lot of fans keep coming back to one of the questions you ask, Elijah, like, what could have been done? What hadn't been done? How did it get here? Because John's not wrong, and I thought about what he said too, a year ago, and I know it slipped a little bit at the end, and that was one of the reasons that Mark is no longer here. This is not a defense of Mark Kingston's tenure. Mark had his opportunities, but John's right, man. A year ago, you were one of the 15 best programs in the country. You're at least at that time, and you still ended up being a 2 seed. And only having to go 3 hours from home to play your playoff games. What happened? This type of precipitous drop off just should not happen to a program of this caliber.
It doesn't happen overnight. That's for sure. I mean, there have been some steps, missteps or steps not taken that probably should have been during the off season to better prepare yourself for some of the adversity that you handled this year, right? Like injuries happen. Yeah, I get it. But in terms of program building, you try to make yourself as injury proof as possible. And this team just isn't that. So I think there really is from a roster standpoint, clearly this is not a roster that is competitive in the SEC right now. And then from like getting it out of players, what you should be getting out of players, like kind of what John alluded to, you're not really getting that either, right? I mean, yeah, we knew Ethan Petrie was good. So Ethan Petrie playing well.
Right.
It is not a shock to anybody, but you needed like 3 or 4 other guys, especially in that lineup, to really step up. And you like what you've seen out of guys like Bo Hollins and KJ Scobie as freshmen, but you don't want to have to rely on true freshmen. This is not a conference, but you should rely on true freshmen to be able to make the jump that other veteran players in your program need to make instead, right? The guys that you bring in from the transfer portal need to be great, not even great impact players, but impact players. You haven't got enough of that either. And that it's one of those things, like a fall like this doesn't happen overnight. Something has been steadily building, and that steady building of maybe whether it be bad habits or whatever it is has compiled to lead to what we have right now, which is a weekend at College Station, which is one of the more forgettable ones in the history of this program.
Well, and I asked John too, like what can people latch on to? And he said, well, before he even answered what you can latch on to, because quite honestly, I don't know what that is. He said, you basically got to go 11-4 in the rest of the regular season to feel good about any opportunity. And it feels like you probably have better odds of going 4-11 than 11-4 with what you've seen so far. So We'll see. More baseball a little bit later on. And again, Gamecock baseball tonight at home versus the Citadel. Lots of spring football to discuss, both Gamecocks and what's going on around the country next hour. This is the Postgame Show. How you watching what you watch, listening to what you listen to. Do it better than ever with integrated media. Been telling you a lot this time of year. What a great opportunity and time to invest in that outdoor home theater system. Amazing sound, amazing picture with the same type of equipment that you might have inside, but it's built to be outside all the time. You don't have to drag it in. You don't have to cover it up. Don't have to worry about the rain or anything getting into it. Nope. It is all built for the outdoors. 803-948-8327. Let integrated media, just like they could do inside, come and walk around outside with you. Set it up so, hey, no glare. You don't want to put it right in the face of the sun, but you don't have to worry about the kids getting it wet or anything else. So if you've been dreaming of that outdoor system where you can enjoy the weather and the kids and the outdoors all at the same time and your favorite sports and shows, 803-948-8327. Call Integrated Media today. All right, 4 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the Postgame Show coming at you. Jay Phillips in Hilton Head, Elijah Campbell in the Herndon Chevy Studios downtown Columbia, wherever you might be. Thank you for choosing to be with us. We appreciate you. Looking forward to being around the Pro-Am tomorrow. I know Coach Shane Beamer is amongst those playing. I was looking here. The official Heritage site does not have the Pro-Am pairings for tomorrow. So I will industry term I'm getting ready to use. I don't do it very often. I will effort that information in the coming minutes and see. I didn't know effort was a verb. Yeah, nah, it's
industry term.
I love telling that story, but I'm not going to tell it right now. I've told it a lot, but I won't tell that again right now. But that was a funny story. But yeah, we'll effort that information for you. But good to be here. And then Thursday, the tournament gets underway, a signature event. So basically all the big names are going to be here, minus Rory McIlroy. Rory had already announced that he would not be here this year. He was here last year. And again, these signature events, I think the total purse here is around $20 million. And the winner is going to get like 2.5. There's a lot of money at stake this week here on Hilton Head Island. But Scotty will be here. Justin Thomas will be here. Shane Lowry will be here. Xander Schauffele, Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth, and on I could go with some of the biggest names on the PGA Tour. Ludwig Oberg. Looking forward. I'm serious about this, Elijah. I'll let you know. You'll be getting several videos and reports back. I'm gonna watch that kid play because I'm telling you, I say kid, he's 25, but I do. Seeing what he did. Finished second at the Masters a year ago. Finishing the top 5 this season. That he can play. That guy's gonna win the Masters. He's gonna win tournaments on this tour. And I hate to say this next thing, but he's gonna be a star for the Ryder Cup European team later this year and for several Ryder Cups to come. I think he's terrific. He's got the look. And I'm looking forward to seeing him play a little bit this week and just really get an up close chance to see somebody who I really believe, and I'm far from alone, is one of the top, I think, 2 or 3 real rising stars of the PGA Tour. And I know like Coach McDonald was with us last week and was picking him to win. And let's face it, man. I mean, even on the back 9 on Sunday, if things go a little differently, he was there. Yeah. And that's all you want, right? Like, I mean, so many weird things happen. And we saw it even with Rory, who ended up winning, but so many things that tournament that messes with your head, man. There's no reason for a guy like Rory McIlroy to hit an 85-yard chip shot into the water, but he did,
because Masters. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or again, 120-yard easy approach when all you need is a 4. No reason, as I keep saying, no reason to throw darts. Just get it up there close, and he hit it in the bunker. And he's not. I mean, we saw Bryson just crumble. We saw Patrick Reed, who I'm not a big fan of, but he plunked one after a brilliant shot. He had a crazy 3-putt, and he plunked one in a bunker. It happens, man, and it happened to Oberg, who I think had a 4, if I'm not mistaken, on 16. Mm-hmm. I'll have to go back and check, but.
You lost him some money.
But I like what he's about. So I'll be checking him out and a few others. But
that's also what makes golf great, though. And those type of days is like with Rory. I mean, like whether you were cheering for him or against him, you're watching a man who is his only opponent is the golf course and the weight of his demons. Right? On national television, you're watching a guy who just lost his lead, now has to go into a playoff hole, and I could not take my eyes off the screen when it was showing the shot of him walking towards the 18th tee to do the playoff hole, where all I'm thinking of is like, I would give a lot of money just to be like a passenger in his brain and listen to his thoughts right now, because really this Masters is being won or lost in between those sets of ears. And to watch somebody have to battle their own personal ghosts in a playoff round is compelling television.
Well, he pulled it off, and but again, he'll be the only guy of the biggest names not here this week, but a week off to recharge. And I imagine he had maybe he foresaw that he would need it no matter what. before committing to this tournament.
Win or lose, man. Yeah, win or lose. You're going to need a mental break
just
after that.
A week of decompression. So I think the next big event we see him is down in New Orleans in a couple of weeks. So
suiting up for the Saints.
Anyway, look,
new quarterback.
Maybe
is that what this means?
I don't know.
Derek Carr might not be available. So Rory
McIlroy, saw that.
QB1 for New Orleans, maybe.
Well, that's an interesting. I like your segue there, and we'll go ahead and take it because I know a lot of Gamecock fans would love to see Spencer Rattler get that opportunity, and he did last year, and he was okay. You know, I mean, I think there's, as you have told us as a longtime Saints fan, you know, there wasn't a lot around him. You know, and I don't know that Derek Carr does considerably better if he's fully healthy last year than what we might have seen numbers wise. From Spencer. I thought he had some really nice flashes, but he had other times when he looked like a rookie. And that's going to happen, especially if you don't have a terrific line or a lot of guys as major weapons. But they have added some pieces. But how do you feel, about what Spencer's chances are? Again, assuming for the sake of this discussion that Carr is unavailable. And then B, and I think maybe as importantly for the New Orleans Saints, does this now force them into a first-round quarterback opportunity, whereas last year they could get Spencer where they did and bring him along with the feeling that Carr still had a couple of solid seasons left? How much has this altered, this shoulder injury, how much has this altered what the Saints are looking at?
Yeah, I'm afraid it might have pressured them into taking a first-round quarterback, even though I think if you have a healthier offensive line, because that's one of the reasons why it's hard to evaluate what Spencer did last year, is because he, you know, Knock, if you've heard this before, he ran for his life in the backfield, right? Like, right. I mean, every snap, you know, the pass blocking was atrocious. They couldn't run blocks. There was no real established running game. Like, the offensive line was just atrocious. It was one of the worst units, in the NFL. And they didn't have much from a receiving standpoint either, because they invested so much in Chris Olave, and Chris Olave just was hurt for a lot of the year. And they had the one concussion that basically knocked him out for the rest of the year. And unfortunately for him, he's been plagued with concussion injuries ever since he's been into the NFL. So what his timeline for return and what he looks like is a serious question mark too. You don't have a lot of weapons at receiver. Your tight ends, reasonable success, but like, you don't want to come in next year with Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson being like your two tight ends, right? I mean, so that's one reason that anytime I saw a mock draft that had them taking Tyler Warren from Penn State, ears perked up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you need so much more help on offense that it makes it so hard for you to accurately evaluate what you have in someone like Spencer. So it makes me kind of feel like their hand is forced into drafting a first round quarterback and making that competition one to try to base future, evaluations off of, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, because there's just so many other needs on this football team right now that if you could just go in, even with Spencer Rattler, and then, let's say you do enough in the draft and in free agency to where you feel good about a lot of parts of your roster, but then if it's like, all right, we still don't feel good about the quarterback, then right? I don't think anyone's expecting this team to make the playoffs next year, but you could use this whole season as a very valuable data point on someone like Spencer Rattler, whereas you might not know as much if you just throw in a lot of inconsistency and question marks at the position.
Sorry, if you're following on YouTube, you just saw my phone blow over. The winds have decided to pick up considerably here along the Calabogie Sound, which is about, 100, not even 100 yards to my left.
Hey, something that would benefit Spencer is, playing in a dome where there is no wind like that.
That's true. Yes.
There's no wind in that dome. Beautifully air conditioned, fixed, a fixed environment.
But I'll show people again, if you tuned in. Hold on, let me do this, because that way I can really hold on to my phone. But here's my setup.
I'm worried about you blowing away.
Are
you weighted down properly? Are you strapped into that seat?
Can everybody? Is that a good shot? I can't. I'm in. Can everybody see? Is that a good? Am I doing it right, Elijah?
You're doing it right. Yeah, right to the grandstand.
I got stuff blowing away all over the place now, so I got to be careful. But that's the 18th grandstand. That's where I am this week, and you can't see the sound, but if you look right through that little crack there, maybe you can see it. I don't know. It's right, but it is there. I promise you. But I'm back now, and honestly, I just littered and I feel bad because I have a stack of all I could find to make a steady thing to raise this thing up was a stack of my business cards, and like 6 of them just blew away. So I better go get them before people say
there are some people that are about to learn Jay Phillips. If you haven't already,
Well,
you're going to learn Jay Phillips. At least have your contact information. So if you get like
well,
text messages or phone calls
right? That's the thing. I don't want that to
strange
happen.
numbers, I kind of do now. I
don't want that to
I
happen.
hope
People
the
will be
wind-
looking like,
I hope the wind has
Who the hell
carried
is
one of
this
those
guy?
into the most mischievous hands that are there at the golf course right now.
well, I see at least 3 of them behind me, so I really do want to go get them.
You might get a text
But
message.
I'll-
Mr. Phillips, is your refrigerator running?
Yeah, I know, right?
Better go catch it.
How long till the break? Let's hope the wind doesn't blow again, because I don't think
I hope it does.
I think they're going to
hope
be.
it does.
Oh, geez.
I hope we have a couple that are uncounted for.
Oh boy. All right. Well, at least you can't see how red my face is at this point in time. We spoke last hour with John Whittle. That'll be on the YouTube channel or on our podcast page, however you find out what we did. But if you want, and you might not, but I think it's worth hearing an honest assessment of where things are right now with Carolina baseball. John absolutely gave us one. And look, I know, the most ardent supporters of this club will be out there tonight, and we'll hope to pull them through. And yeah, I get it, and I'm with you. I understand how people feel about it, but hard to latch on right now and really find. And if the pitching was just a little better, Elijah, when I say a little, and I know this sounds crazy, right? But let's just say that the ERA was 6.5 instead of 8.5, and you were dealing with something like you are, because you scored 12 runs the other day against Texas A&M. You scored 7 runs in a loss to Texas A&M on Thursday. In between, you didn't score jack squat, and that's hard to get. I think we talked about it a bunch. This team puts runners on base. They don't bring them around enough. Maybe they started to do that, but now they're putting so many on base from a pitching perspective. It's just, again, I don't know, but you want to find something positive if you're a fan. And I think reality and facts just aren't giving you that at this point. You certainly need to win tonight. And then you got to win a series, man. Again, in the 6 series, including Clemson, that you've had against higher level competition, you've won 2 baseball games. I mean, you're 2-6? What is it? 2-17?
17.
Or 2, something like that. Maybe not 2-17. Yeah, 2-17 if you include Chapel Hill. Yeah, 2-17. So not good.
Like you're not even really just in season salvaging mode. I know I used that term in the first hour that you're now just in season salvaging mode. I should probably amend that to where it's program salvaging mode, right? It may seem
it's getting there.
Insignificant.
It's getting there.
Like John makes a really good point. I mean, if you crater and only have like 4 wins in a season in SEC play, like your program is now like a really tough sell. And when has South Carolina baseball been a really tough sell?
Never. And that, well, I say never, but rarely. And I think he made a terrific point. And you and I were touching on this yesterday. And I don't want to say I'm glad that John said it, but I do think it verifies and validates some of the things we were talking about too. That he mentioned Auburn as the direct comp for a potential player in the offseason that's looking for somewhere. He's not mentioning Arkansas or Tennessee or Texas or Florida or Vanderbilt, which is what Carolina fans want to hear and want to believe. You were asking me about some program comps, and I told you really the only 2 that I wasn't prepared to say their programs. Yeah, because team and program can be different things. That Their programs hadn't surpassed Carolina were the 2 Alabama schools. I'm not sold on that yet, and I can make a case for the 2 Mississippi schools, and we've seen them both, or we'll see them both here soon enough. Seen one, see another here this weekend. But that in and of itself should sound some alarm bells. That wow, Auburn is now a potential like portal comp for where the Gamecocks are. So we'll see. Baseball tonight at 7. On the other side of the break, a lot more spring football to get to. Elijah's thoughts on what Shane had to say and some sound from Shane himself. This is the Postgame Show. Guys, you're not feeling like yourself as you get older. Things just aren't working the way they used to or the way you want them to, whatever it might be. And there's a host of things, right, in your work life, your personal life, just, doing things around the yard or working out. If you're wondering why, don't wait for it to go away, and don't ask yourself these questions. Instead, go see Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the Men's Clinic. You get a one-on-one consultation with Dan and his staff, and they'll talk with you about what you do every day, about what's not happening for you, about how long this has been going on, and then figure out a plan that's just right for you. No such thing as a one-size-fits-all treatment at the Men's Clinic. Set up a free consultation, 803-875-MENS, and you can learn more about what they've done, hear what a lot of patients have said about what they do, themensclinicsc.com. Do it for yourself and your family at the Men's Clinic.
And what?
Yeah, certainly depth for sure. Got a neat story. Brought him in on a visit and really just trying to learn as much about him as you can and why his story and his journey. And he's got a fascinating story for sure. Good size, good ability, really impressed a lot of people in the building when he was here on his visit, and a guy that, certainly, as you guys know, we need to increase the depth and competition in that room, and he gives us the ability to do that.
Shane Beamer from his press conference today talking about the portal edition of Damon Clowney from Charlotte/Louisville. Never actually played for the Cardinals. Yes, he is related to Jadeveon, but Damon is from the D.C. area. But came down here, played at Charlotte, did a fine job. Carolina has seen some guys from that school make some additions here. Certainly D-Knight, the latest, and what a story that is, as he's going to make his way to the next level. But that was Shane from earlier today. Elijah, you were there. Overall, I don't want to, body language or whatever, but and we hear a lot of coaches in the spring. Hey, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing right now. But sometimes you can, kind of read between lines. But overall, as they approach the spring game, do they feel like these last couple of weeks have been productive?
I feel like it's they believe it's helped them. I think you're right. I mean, you going into spring games, you get what you get, in terms of like actual information. Usually it's like, hey, has anybody gotten hurt? Nothing disastrous has been happening in practice. And it seems like, this past week, thankfully, no one else has gotten added to the injury report. Everybody that's been healthy and playing this last week, in practices will be playing in the spring game on Friday. Then I think the one interesting nugget, though, is when Jack kind of asked a question about, maybe the team's progression from one scrimmage to the next. And he did say that, the last time they were out and they were scrimmaging, the offense ran 74 plays and didn't turn the ball over. Right.
Yeah.
That's a positive sign. Like, yes, I could also say something about your defense, but like I think they're pretty optimistic that they avoided turnovers. They, avoid them as much as possible in that game right there. So he said that, looking forward them to be consistent in a lot of those things is something that he's watching for in the spring game, as well as just a lot of the like fundamental stuff. And that's kind of what I believe a lot of these spring sessions are great for, is to work on like the operational part of football, right? Like we saw how Shane reacted to the field goal team in last year's spring game, getting only 10 guys out in the field. Wasn't a fan of that. Right. He wasn't a fan of that. That's something that you want to have mastered by the time you get into the fall and you start practicing, having the practices that lead up to the opening game, right? That's something that by then you want completely figured out, because you don't want to be in the third or fourth quarter of that game with Virginia Tech and you have some operational penalties, right? Those are killers. And it's also just fundamental parts of football. So I think that's one thing he mentioned. Yet while it may sound, basic, it's still one of those things that if you can prove that you can go out there in a game setting, the operation runs smoothly, we can trust everybody to at least get this thing started, then it's a good starting point, good base to learn off of by the time you get into the fall.
Let's hear this is a little bit longer cut. And again, thanks to Tyler Head of the Tyler Head Sports Experience for getting this done for us this afternoon. Cut number 3 on that list, please, Elijah. You and I talked about this earlier, but up front on offense, what's that looking like? Again, you can look at no depth charts yet, but even if you look at the roster, you see experience. But obviously, some new parts, some new faces. How is the offensive line coming along here, Shane?
I feel good. I think Lonnie's done a really good job of just kind of mixing and matching and getting guys work in different places. I've seen multiple of our offensive linemen work at different spots, and we're not getting ready for a game. So when we get into the season, yes, you want to get as much continuity as you can with that starting 5. We're not doing that right now. We're trying to develop depth and mix and match and things like that. But I feel like they've done a really good job. We've had some guys that have been banged up a little bit and haven't done as much in practice the last couple of weeks, which is disappointing, but it's given other guys opportunities to earn a role. And they're certainly doing that. Some guys that have taken advantage of some other guys being injured, they've taken advantage of it and made some strides here this week as well. So, we've recruited well at that position. You guys know that, and it's time for us to just continue to take another step. And we've got some young faces. We've like Shed Surratt, and we've got some new faces like Boaz, and then we've got some older returning faces like Case and Henry and Tavy. And it's a good group. They've been working really, really hard as well. So before we watch the spring game on Friday night and we see whoever trots out there with Lenoris and just assume that there's your 2025 offensive line. We're drafting. Okay. So we're drafting an offensive line. So Lonnie and myself and the rest of the offensive staff, we're going to sit down and we're going to break up the offensive line where it's equal, where it's not necessarily here's your 5 and then they go with Lenoris. We're going to have just a mix and match. We'll have a right tackle, we'll have a left tackle, we'll have a center, we'll have a guard, and we'll have a guard. And then when you're making your picks, you don't draft individually, you just draft this offensive line or draft that offensive line. So that's my, PSA for the week as well. When we're trying to determine who the starting offensive line is, whoever trots out there with Lenoris, it is for the Garnet team or the black team, whichever team Lenoris is on Friday night. But that doesn't mean that's our starting offensive line coming out of spring.
Which fans will go like, oh, man, I wanted that to be the one. And I get it. And by the way, a little bit later on, we have another cut where Shane goes into greater detail on the draft process. Do you like this? There's part of it that's kind of fun. And then I suppose at the same time, there is part where I wouldn't mind seeing 1 versus 1s, et cetera. But I suppose for the benefit of the guys, spreading the talent around a little bit and having a competition in and of itself is maybe the most beneficial part in Coach Beamer's mind, Elijah. Like, hey, I want you to go out there and try to win. I don't want you to just go out there and try to fight for your spot, because those can be 2 different things.
They can. And I think there's really not a bad way to go with this. And I'm sure that's why a lot of different coaches have different philosophies on these type of, games and these simulated games, simulated environments. I think there's a really good benefit to the competition aspect that you raised of trying to do your best to win your team the game and going out there and trying to win just because you're a competitor. And also, like, you're going to see what different guys can do in different lineup combinations, right? And that's one thing, when you listen to that clip, he used the term, you're mixing and matching right now. And when mixing and matching, sometimes you might see something in practice and you're like, okay, well, I didn't think about this before in terms of like a lineup combination. Let's see if we can do this in this type of simulated game environment, see if it works a little bit. See if, the proof of concept we get in practice is applicable into an actual game scenario. I think there's a lot of value to be had there. I don't know if it's necessarily more right than the other, but there's definitely value in both ways of doing this type of thing, whether it be mixing offensive linemen up or straight up going out there with, the intended starting 5 for the regular season. I think either one of those is probably beneficial in just different ways.
I'm raising my hand. I have a suggestion. Call on me.
Yes. Mr. J. Phillips.
I would like to see a real spring game against another team.
That'd be great for those purposes right there. It'd be great for us. Yeah. It'd absolutely be great for us. And I think it'd be great for both programs involved.
It'd be great for college football. I kid a little bit. I don't kid about wanting it. And I know the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks wants it. And I know the head coach of the University of Colorado wants it, and Syracuse and others. Maybe this time next year they actually relax that rule. I don't know. But I can't be more serious when I say it's time for a spring game. And again, let that be your FCS in-state game. Let Carolina play Furman. Or who does Carolina have this year? State?
State, yep.
Yeah, okay. Bring State up here this week. And whoever Clemson has. I don't know which one Clemson has this year. Let Clemson do that in the spring. And then just rotate them accordingly. And write them their, what is it, Elijah? I don't know, 350, 450, whatever they're getting. Give it to them. You'll make it up. You got the money. I just, and again, if you have to charge, like, would fans rather have a free spring scrimmage, or would you pay $10 to watch an exhibition game against Furman or the Citadel or whatever?
You'd watch the game. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see a game, and I'll pay $10 for that, or $15, and I'll buy a couple of beers or whatever, so we'll see. Interesting question Shane got today from a special teams perspective. And I haven't heard this answer yet. So you'll get to hear it with me when the postgame show returns.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you, they're causing some issues on the roadways, starting with one on Blythewood Road near I-77, Boiling Springs Road near South Carolina 34, Hardscrabble Road at Clemson Road, and then a pair on Highway 1 at Augusta Road, one over at Pisgah Church Road, the other near Sparkleberry Lane.
Talking some Carolina spring football. Threw a little baseball in earlier with our buddy John Whittle. We'll come back around to some of those thoughts in a bit. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Appreciate you being with us. Split duty for the rest of the week. Elijah back home in the Herndon Chevy Studios in Columbia. Yours truly down on Hilton Head Island for the Heritage, the Pro-Am tomorrow. Coach Beamer amongst those playing. So I'll be out on the course following a little bit of that. And then have some reports for you Thursday and Friday, or as Elijah likes to say, Thursday and Friday.
That's right. From
here at the Harbor Town Golf Links.
That's proper English.
That's right. That's right. But very fortunate to be where I am today, and thank a lot of folks who let that happen. But I am adjacent to the 18th green. I can't see it. You want me to do this again, Elijah, for those who have just tuned in?
If you wish.
Okay. Well, again, there, if you're watching on YouTube, that's the 18th grandstand. There you go. Hope that's a good shot, Elijah, because I can't see it. But
it'll do.
Up my phone. There you go. So that's where I am. And just saw a few golfers go. It's hard to tell. They're going by so quick, and I just kind of turned my head. But there are definitely some guys out on the course. And I suppose if you wanted to practice hitting in very gusty winds, which I think golfers would actually appreciate from time to time, then they have chosen the right afternoon, my man, because I would say, without my full meteorological background, he tried to say also in English.
That's tough. No, that was not an easy play on your part. That's not an easy play.
I'd say these gusts are definitely above 30. Easily.
Okay. Can create some interesting.
Well, I do like this. Here, watch again. If you're watching on YouTube and Elijah can see me, you go like this. You hold it up.
Lick the finger, hold the one finger up trick.
Yeah,
a number gets computed in your brain.
32 right there. That gust right there was 32. I could tell.
That was the J. Phillips Weather Index, the JPWI.
That's right.
We can now start incorporating. Man. Yeah.
I'm like Ollie. It's breezy. That's the
weather report.
If you can see my hair right now,
your hair's been a mess. You're gonna walk inside, and it's gonna look like you've been hanging on the wing of an airplane.
That's right.
Going to another continent.
My wife and I are supposed to go to dinner, and she's like, "You're not going out like that." So we'll see.
Not without this hairbrush, you're not, sir.
Yeah. I was like, "Well, can I wear a hat?" I don't know that where we're going lets hats in, but we'll see. It's a golf course, right? They got to let you wear a hat or a cap.
It would be very unfortunate if they
We'll see. We'll see. All right. Anyway, back to some football. And again, going into the break, a special teams question, but I said I had not yet heard the answer. Now, Elijah heard the answer because Elijah was at the press conference. But Shane Beamer, I'll let you, do I need any further setup other than, I guess Shane was asked, would you let a guy kick and punt? Right?
That was the question, because Mason loves having a solid spring, and the people are raving about his abilities to do both. So is that something that Shane Beamer would have in mind for a player to hold both punting and kicking duties? Here was his response.
That made me laugh, man. That guy brought out a genuine laugh on he can kick, punt, and hold.
A
Let me
man
tell you
with many
something.
titles, potentially.
If there is a special teamer that could kick, punt, and hold, then sign him up, right? Because hey, especially at the next level, even this level now, Elijah, that's efficiency.
That is
right.
One man do three jobs, even though two of those jobs are kind of have to be done by
two at
different
once.
people.
Yeah, two at once would be, if you could hold and kick.
I mean, you could drop kick, right? I mean, that we could still bring that back.
Yeah, they should. I still think they should bring back the drop kick. Oh, sorry, again, y'all. It is so windy out here.
That's a foul.
My wife just said, "Why don't you come inside?" And I was like, "No, I want to be outside. I like this. I'll just deal with the wind." But it is very windy today. But I'm fine. Not a complaint. I assure you. I'm here. No, in all seriousness, I do think that these battles are interesting, and it certainly feels like Mason is pretty. I don't. You tell me, Elijah, based on what you're hearing, and maybe some of the other things that you heard today. Is Mason well ahead of others when it comes to both jobs? I mean, and if he is, what does that mean in terms of which one he does best and how to spur further competition for the second job? I think those are that's an interesting. I don't know if dilemma is the right word, but problem to have.
I mean, yeah, it certainly feels like Mason Love is the leader in the clubhouse, at least from my perspective, in both punting and kicking. And again, Shane said not ideal, but if there's a situation where he's the best punter and best kicker on the team, you have to play him at both because he's the best at them. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him do that because he did it so well in high school. That was one of the appeals of bringing him here. Says, he punts and plays kicks, and he could have the range to be a really good kicker. And if he's accurate, then obviously you're going to want him attempting all the the extra points and field goals for this team. But if straight up, the guy's got a boot, he's got a boot, and you can use it in two different ways, and that's all well and good. But I think that's a possibility, a real possibility that we could see him do better.
I can appreciate, I guess, on one hand, that the use of the term not ideal, but I wouldn't mind going a little more in depth on the why it's not ideal. Is it because it takes time away from just truly specializing in one over another? Is there a concern of because a punt and a kick are very different in terms of how your leg is used, that you end up taxing your leg to the point that you maybe have some kind of dead leg later in the season? Is it so is it an injury thing? I'd just be curious because I think like you just said and like Shane said, hey, if you can do it and you're the best on our team, then that's just kind of where that's just where you are.
Yeah, don't keep him from doing both if he is the best at doing both. Like that's
right.
You need to optimize the best production out of both of those, both very important positions. It just so happens if one guy can do both, I say you do it. But I think all the reasons you mentioned right there probably is what makes it non-ideal, right? I mean, there can be some fatigue. And just naturally, the more you're out on a football field, because, between punting, field goal kicking, and kicking off, like you're going to be on the field a lot more than your normal kicker would. Risk of injury is just naturally going to be a little elevated just by virtue of being on a football field, right? Like that automatically raises things a little bit in terms of an injury prevention standpoint. But I mean, look, if he's that good as a punter and as a kicker, I think you gladly take it.
Come back on the other side of the break, and Shane mentioned earlier about a draft of the teams for the game this weekend. We'll let you hear how that draft will take place when the Postgame Show returns. We're live from Hilton Head and Columbia on this Tuesday. It's the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the Postgame Show on this Tuesday. Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell with you. Appreciate you being with us. Coming up top of the hour, 5 o'clock headlines. We'll have a lot more from Coach Beamer and the assistants, all speaking this week ahead of Friday night's Carolina spring game. Drive around the SEC, a full slate of baseball tonight because pretty much everybody, I believe, is playing Thursday through Saturday ahead of the holiday weekend. We'll get into that for you. Plus a couple of football transfer notes to get to in the drive around the SEC. But in the meantime, staying with Gamecock football. Again, Elijah was at Shane's press conference today, spring game Friday night. And it will be a draft. It won't be ones versus ones and twos versus twos, etc. Here is Coach Beamer explaining to all of us how players will be selected. So there you go. So that's how they're going to get it done. Weezy and Demo. Do you know which team you'll be calling a play for?
Ooh, I want to call a play for Wheezy's team. That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
That sounds like that's a coach name I want to work for.
Sure.
I would
Sure.
I would lend my services to.
Can you get Wheezy from Toy Story to be part of it? Because that would be awesome.
See, that's all I think of in my mind is the Wheezy from Toy Story or Lil Wayne.
Okay. Or Lil Wayne. By the way, and I keep bugging you as a quick aside here to get down to Disney World. Now, you need to spend like a week because there's so much to do. But without giving too much away, Wheezy features prominently now on 2 different rides.
Good.
At Disney World. So I say prominently, but he's not like necessarily part of the story of the ride, okay? But he features prominently at 2 of them.
Good.
Let's just
That's
put it
how
that
it should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great character.
He's a great character, man. He's a great character. And the great Bob Goulet, man. So at least the singing voice of the great Robert Goulet. But anyway, all right. Well, that'll be fun. And I think Shane makes a point in there, Elijah, that's kind of serious, and that is, draft night. And that it's become one of the more enjoyable nights they have all year. I think the guys, there's again, it immediately heightens a level of competition. It's like when any of us, I suppose, for those of us that didn't play Southeastern Conference football, right? But even when you're out, say, maybe out on the golf course competing with your buddies, as opposed to just having a beer with your buddies or being on the same team or something, or, back in the days of high school practices, or the old shirts and skins or whatever, instead of the guys on your team, now they're against you for a little bit, and it builds that relationship and that sense of competition. So, but I can appreciate that becomes something for 100 and something players that is actually pretty good. I guess the question would be, how does Mr. Irrelevant of the Gamecock spring game draft get treated?
Ooh, yeah. you need a shirt or something. See what I would love to watch. Maybe not just not watching them draft the team. I would want to see them draft the teams with the whole team in the same room so they could react to your pick.
Well, I imagine Justin and his crew will be, this could be there. That's good content.
That's great content. That's absolutely great content.
I mean,
I'd
I'd
love
do
to
it
see
up,
players
man.
argue about somebody getting taken over them, but they didn't think should be taken over them.
Shane here. Okay, so since he has 2 head coaches, right? Shane should play the role of commissioner and like do the big bro hug every time, at least for like the first round or
Giving
something.
out garnet and black jerseys.
Yeah, get Shane in his suit, and have a big stage inside the, maybe if it's at the practice facility or something like that, and have all the lights, and do the big bro hug and
You
hold
could
up a
stream
big
that
garnet.
online, and you get so many viewers throughout the entire thing, even if it takes
That'd be
hours.
fun,
to do,
man.
people would absolutely do that.
That'd be fun. That'd be good. Or again, at least for like the first 20 picks, or something like that. I don't know. You don't want to have it to go forever, and you certainly don't need, instead of 15 minutes between picks, you have, I don't know, 30 seconds between picks or something.
Oh, that would heighten things up.
But
you better come in there
could
prepared
be,
with your big board.
Yeah, that could be fun, man. That could absolutely be fun. And Justin and his team already do such an amazing job of providing fantastic content. So it's something to think about. Maybe not. Maybe it's too late for this season, but maybe a year from now, we have a Gamecock spring game draft on television with Commissioner Beamer. I'm here.
We could even draft our own teams. I mean, if we wanted to, if we wanted to say, okay,
why not?
I'm the black team, you're the garnet team. If we're drafting a hypothetical team, what we
why
doing?
not? Coming up for you in just a bit, headlines of the day. And again, we'll have more from Coach Beamer. Also, Shane was asked about the Nico Iamaleava situation, and I would love to get a chance. I will try to carve out the time next hour to let you hear what he had to say about that. There's more certainly on his team that we want to get to. And again, a drive around the SEC with an interesting addition into one major SEC program. So we'll get into all those things for you next hour. Again, split duty the rest of the week. Elijah's in Columbia. Yours truly down on Hilton Head as the Heritage gets underway on Thursday. Pro-Am tomorrow here at Harbortown. We'll have a lot more on that throughout the week as well. Hour 3 of the program is coming up. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell. It's the Tuesday post-game show. Keep it here.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you, they're causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon, starting with one on Bluff Road at Highway 48 near Highway 16 and Rosewood Drive, one on Boiling Springs Road near South Carolina 34. Got a pair of them on Highway 1 at Augusta Road. One's over at I-20, the other near Sparkleberry Lane. And lastly, we have an accident recently reported on US 176 Broad River Road at Greystone Boulevard in River Hill Circle.
It is 5 o'clock news time here on a Tuesday. Welcome back in. Also, the final hour of the postgame show. Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell with you. Thank you for being with us. Yours truly down on Hilton Head covering the Heritage this week. Elijah is studios in downtown. Start with last night's WNBA draft, where, at no surprise, Paige Beckers was the first draft pick overall. But 3 Gamecocks chosen last night as Tahina Paopao will play for the Atlanta Dream. Couple of spots later, Bree Hall selected to play with the Leah Boston and Caitlin Clark with the Indiana Fever, and Sanaya Fagan will be heading out to L.A. to take a job with the L.A. Sparks. Paopao should be looked at, I think, right away as a big-time offensive help for Atlanta. Bree Hall, maybe one of the better defensive players we've seen in college basketball in a long time. And, Elijah, you're around this team a lot too. I have a real hunch that Sanaya Fagan is going to really blossom at the next level. It's not that she couldn't at South Carolina, but like a lot of spots, there's a log jam there. But we really saw her with Ashlyn going down and, the way Chloe could step out and do some of the things that she did. Sanaya, became more with Joyce of a 5 in this offense. But knowing her skill set, I really do think in the WNBA, she's going to have a chance to show what she can do individually a lot more than she was able at South Carolina.
And the one thing that she did show at South Carolina that she can do is play in smaller sample sizes and in reserve roles, right? I mean, she spent a good chunk of her career here in Columbia as a reserve, coming off the bench, helping the team in a shorter amount of time. I think that's something that's going to help her immediately off the jump, because a lot of these players that get drafted oftentimes aren't going to be starters their first year. Very seldomly are they. And if they are, it's because they are, that high level of talent. So Sanaya is going to see herself in a position where she's going to come off the bench and help the team in any way she can. And that's not something she's not accustomed to. Some of these players that get drafted and that don't start immediately, it's their first time since high school normally that, they're not in the starting lineup for a lot of them. So for Sanaya, that's something that an experience she can play upon that's going to greatly benefit her career over in LA, is based off that experience she's had being a winning player in a very specified role off of the bench. I think that can carry over to LA very well.
Yeah, Bree gets reunited again with Aaliyah, and she'll play with Caitlin Clark. And that team has gotten better, certainly the last couple of years. With back-to-back years when you have the number 1 pick, it says a lot about what needed to be done. But now they've taken some of those steps, and all of a sudden there's somebody like Bree in whatever role she's going to play, whether it's off the bench or as an elite defensive starter. Watch for Indiana to now become the class. I mean, the class of the league pretty soon. But when you have somebody out there whose role is so clearly defined as teams climb the ladder, I think it's important. But seeing what she can do, shut things down, help start the break. And at times she can nail a shot, man. But I think she's going to have a good time going to a team that is poised for great success with the, again, previous 2 number 1s overall.
Oh yeah, and it brings a culture of winning with her. Like, right, like that's the one thing. Like the Indiana Fever have a very talented roster, and they've got a lot of pieces in place that have been building over the last couple of years, and obviously highlighted by the last 2 number 1 picks, like you said, with Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. But this team needs a little more perimeter defensive help, right? And that's something that obviously Bree Hall specializes in, because I mean, for my money, that was the best on-ball defender in women's college basketball this year.
Yeah.
By far. And she shut down every single assignment, guarded a multitude of different players, different types of players and player prototypes. Like that's the type of player that you get when you really need to like capture a window, right? I mean, again, they have the foundational pieces in place, and they finished last year really strong. I think they ended up 20-20. But out of the 12 teams in the WNBA, you want to know where they ranked in defensive rating, Jay? Out of 12 teams.
The way you're asking the question I'm gonna say 11th or 12th.
It is 11th. Yeah, 11th out of 12 teams in defensive rating in the WNBA last year. Really, if I was the GM of Indiana and Bree Hall falls in my lap at that point of the draft, I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer. You have to take her. You have to take her there.
And for Tahina, I don't know as much about, what Atlanta has been like of late. I know more than anything, they've had some off-court issues with ownership and things like that. So maybe things are settling down from that perspective now for that particular ball club. But here again, I see somebody who wasn't necessarily restrained in college basketball, but because of the rotational things that Carolina did, with Tahina, Tessa, kind of splitting some time, as that outside gunner. I mean, this young lady can shoot the lights out, and I got a hunch too that her game and numbers begin to elevate when she's out there just more often and becomes an even greater focal point for her ball club.
Oh, certainly. I mean, any time that you get a 3-point shooter, I know her 3-point numbers were going to be a little down last year, but like this is another great draft pick for need. Again, 12 teams in the WNBA. Jay Phillips, where did the Atlanta Dream rank in 3-point shooting?
The way you're asking the question, Elijah, I'm going to say 11th or 12th.
It is again 11th. The answer to this question is 11th. So this is another team that definitely drafted based on need. And when you only shoot about 30% from 3, you need somebody who at times in multiple seasons in their college career hit over 40, right? And she's one, if she gets a rhythm shot, she's knocking it down. It's almost automatic. So that was one where if you're the Atlanta Dream and you're the GM and you're like, oh, what was our offense lacking last year? Oh, we're one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league. Yeah, let's take the girl who's on multiple seasons, hit over 40% from 3, and also was a starting, point guard on a national championship winning team. Yeah, that's got that pedigree. I think that can help them out a lot in that area.
This is one time where we could say, counsel, I'm glad, or Your Honor, I'm glad counsel is leading the witness, because that helped a lot. So thank you for that. But there you go. Again, Tahina Paopao to Atlanta, Bree Hall to Indiana, where she joins Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. Sanaya Fagan gets to head out to the coast to play for the
Magic
LA
Johnson
Sparks.
gave her a shout out on Twitter last night.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
That's pretty cool. Anytime Magic Johnson's tweeting about how good you are at basketball and how you're going to help the team he owns, that's a win. Yeah. That's a win for the day. That's a tweet that you get that you frame. There's very few frameable tweets on this planet. Very few.
Well,
very few.
Well, speaking of frameable, she'll get some shots here pretty soon with Magic. Maybe gets to meet LeBron and Luka. Hey,
frameable.
And anybody else in Hollywood? I don't know. Jack Nicholson, maybe. I don't know.
Hey, I'm sure Lisa Leslie, who makes return trips to the place that she built.
There you go.
So get back in that conversation with her.
But congratulations,
our program a little bit, during the NCAA tournament.
Congratulations to all 3 former Gamecocks, and best of luck at the next level. Speaking to the Gamecocks, back at it tonight with Carolina baseball, and it's a 6:30 first pitch tonight at Founders Park. Gamecocks and the Citadel. South Carolina will send Jackson Susie to the hill. Junior lefty is 3-0 with a 4.76, 17 innings pitched, 20 strikeouts, 9 walks. Connor Comiskey is a senior righty, no record, and 11.25 ERA and just 12 innings pitched, 13 walks, and 9 strikeouts. Gamecocks and the Citadel Bulldogs tonight at 7 o'clock. Speaking of baseballs, we continue our integrated media headlines of the day. Last night, the Braves beat the Blue Jays in Toronto. Austin Riley hit 2 of them. 2 big home runs, one early, one late, had 5 RBI as Atlanta wins 8-4. Those 2 teams go at it again tonight as Atlanta looks to put together its first win streak of the season. I don't know if 2 games does a streak make, but considering they haven't won back-to-back games yet, I'll call it one. If
you
they
can
can
call
get
it a
done.
2-game winning streak. Yeah. I mean,
If they get it done. Spencer Schwellenbach will go for the Braves 1-0 with a .45. He's actually pitched he's been doing all right. And 20 innings pitched, too. He's having a very good start to the year. 19 strikeouts, just 3 walks. Kevin Gossman, the former Brave and Oriole and former a lot of guys, pitches tonight for Toronto. He is 1-1. He's been pretty good, too. 2.33 ERA.
Been good the last couple of years. He's strung together a couple
Yeah,
of
he has.
years.
He has. 19 1/3. Let's see, 14 strikeouts and 3 walks, 7:07 first pitch tonight. I don't even know what they call the dome anymore up there. Do you? I don't know. It used to be Sky Dome. Then it was the Rogers Center, which sounds a lot like, the Bon Secours Wellness Center. Like Rogers Center tonight, Blue Jays tomorrow, water aerobics.
I like Joe Carter Arena. How about that? We can go Joe Carter Stadium.
That's fine. Well, why not? But a little bit past 7 o'clock tonight for the Braves and the Blue Jays. Let's see what else we got here in our headlines of the day. Oh, this was kind of cool. I'll call this a headline if only because I didn't have a chance to fit it into any of our Gamecock segments. But ESPN's college football analysts have been breaking down a lot of things in the spring. And today they have a ranking out on the best edge rushers coming back for the 2025 season. 10 voters. And Dylan Stewart was the runaway number 1 with 6 of 10 first place votes on whatever scale they have. Elijah, he got 94 points, and I'll explain why 94 is a lot more than the next guy. Last year, 23 tackles, 10.5 for loss, 6.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. And as we saw too, it wasn't so much that as his freshman year went on, he began to give out. I think a lot of offensive coaches said, hey, shut that kid down. Then Kennard started having, the second half of his season. And so it was a pick your poison kind of moment for a lot of offenses. But Dylan Stewart easily, in the minds of ESPN's college analysts, the number 1 edge rusher coming back. And start the competition already, kids, because number 2 on that list is Clemson's TJ Parker. He got 3 of the remaining 4 first place votes. So 3 of 10, 69 points. Last year, nice. TJ, 57 tackles, 19.5 for loss, 11 sacks, and 6 forced fumbles. And again, the only other first place vote goes to Colin Simmons of Texas, who also had 69 points, 48 tackles, 14 for loss, 9 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. A couple others on here, Mikhail Kamara of Indiana, Danny Dennis Sutton of Penn State, who I think is going to emerge out of the shadow of Abdul Carter and become the next guy at Penn State, and Mateo Uyunglele of Oregon is next on the list. But congratulations to the new D. Stu. If there's congratulations there. I mean, it's a preseason vote on a position battle, but a Gamecock beats a Clemson Tiger in April. So
take all the wins
whenever
you get.
Yeah, whenever it happens, right? Absolutely. No doubt about that. Finally, our integrated media headlines. Champions League quarterfinals continuing today. Second legs of both of these. So Paris went to Aston Villa in Birmingham, not the one in Alabama. They lost 3-2 today, Elijah Campbell, but they win 5-4 on aggregate. So Paris is moving on to the Champions League semifinal. And Barcelona, that's right, there you go. And Barcelona also lost today in Dortmund, but they had already beaten Dortmund 4-0, so they advance 5-3 on aggregate. So Paris 5-4 over 2 legs, Barcelona 5-3 over 2 legs. Tomorrow we have the final games. It will be Inter and Bayern Munich. Inter leads that one, and I think Arsenal plays tomorrow too. I'm not sure.
Oh, you wouldn't know?
I'm not sure. No,
sure?
Arsenal will be at Real Madrid. And if y'all saw me in the studio last week, Elijah had a couple of camera shots of me as Arsenal was scoring in what became an amazing 3-0 win. I will gladly take a loss tomorrow by 2 goals or fewer if that's what it takes, sir. I don't want that.
That's all that matters.
I'm not
The aggregate
pulling.
score
I'm not
is all
pulling.
that matters.
That's right. But Arsenal is up 3-0 as they go to Madrid tomorrow, and then we'll have our Champions League Final Four. That's our integrated media headlines of the day. We'll come back on the other side. More from Coach Beamer's press conference just a few days away from Carolina's spring game. Drive around the SEC still to come as well. It's a split post-game show from Columbia and Hilton Head, and we're back after this. Let me tell you about our friends at the Joint Chiropractic Centers. They've been around for years now with one very simple goal for their patients: improve your overall health and prevent reoccurring issues from nagging you and bothering you. If you've been bothered by back, neck, shoulder, or joint pain, the Joint is ready to get you back to feeling the way you want to. And listen to this. You never have to worry about an appointment. You never have to worry about insurance. They're open Monday through Friday, 10 to 7, Saturdays, 10 to 4. Yes, you can show up and they will see you in a very quick manner. They're also FSA and HSA approved. In Columbia, they have locations on Harbison Boulevard, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch, and Sunset Boulevard in Lexington. They're convenient, they're affordable, they help you maintain a healthy body, and again, they prevent reoccurring issues. You can learn more at thejoint.com. Find out if it's right for you. $29 initial visit covers a lot of things. Remember, you don't have to feel bad to feel better at The Joint. 19 minutes after 5 o'clock. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Yours truly down on Hilton Head, waiting for the Heritage to get underway. Pro-Am tomorrow. Be out doing a little bit of that. And then reports from here on Thursday and Friday. Elijah back home. So, again, Elijah's gotten to travel. Now it's my turn for a bit. So appreciate all who allow that to happen.
Jay's
back. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But, again, it is a cool setup. I'm not going to lie. But nice to be down here. And hope to have some more guests. A lot of things are fluid at this setting, but we're hoping to have some folks stop by our location not too far from the 18th green and see if we can't to do that. We should learn more on those guests probably overnight and tomorrow, but looking forward to being out on the course for the Pro-Am tomorrow morning. And I'll try to, I'm not going to heckle Shane Beamer. That would be mean. But, like I was telling Tyler and Terry earlier, just go like, hey, Stoops wouldn't hit it like that, or something like that. Just out of nowhere.
Some A+ chirping, yeah. Some A+ heckling.
Just something, just a little. I mean, you gotta do a little something, right?
Something,
so,
yeah.
We'll see.
Or
but,
invoke Brett Bielema's name in there somehow.
Yeah, probably. I probably won't do that. I think Stoops feels more fun because now they've beaten.
Now
Stoops,
they own them.
They've beaten them 3 out of 4, right? So
I think it's 4 straight.
Is it? I can't remember. I don't know. It's straight. There's a streak. Speaking of potential streaks, yeah. Again, I just need the Braves to start one tonight. But anyway, back to more from what Shane had to say. Let's go to cut number 1 because I think this is interesting too. The South Carolina defense maybe exceeding a lot of people's expectations last year because you just didn't know what guys like D. Knight and Kennard and Stewart were going to do for you. And suddenly they become, at least across the Southeastern Conference, a version of household names. But some new faces, D. Stu not one of them right now. Here's Shane on how some of those guys are progressing in the spring.
Yeah, as you guys know, there's so many new faces on the defense. And that's the thing you go out there for the first day of spring ball and you're missing all these guys that have been literally at every practice with you. Boogie, Tonka, TJ, Debo, O'Donnell. I mean, literally every practice since I got hired as the head coach, those guys were at practice. And the first time they weren't was the first day of spring ball. And you look around and you have so many new faces, but that's exciting as a coach. And I like the group. I really do. I think we're longer at a lot of positions from a length standpoint. We are certainly more athletic in some ways. We're just really, really young, but I've been pleased with the progress and the steps that the defense has taken this spring. The new transfers that have come in, I think, have really done a nice job of solidifying that they belong. The freshmen that have come in have continued to take steps. We're really excited about this, all the new guys, transfers and freshmen. They're all going to have a chance to help us as well. And, now it's continuing to just develop depth and get experience. You think about it, there's, as far as guys that have started games here at Carolina, there's not many returning on defense that have started. Now there's a lot of really good new players, but they're just inexperienced. But I've been pleased with the progress that they've made, and they've been disruptive. And now we just got to be more consistent throughout practice. We'll have a good period, then we'll have a not so good period. Same thing with the offense. That's kind of where, going back to some of the questions about the spring game on Friday night, that would be a successful one is if I just saw consistency offensively and defensively and special teams, because we've been a little up and down, just, some practices and some scrimmages.
I think it's interesting when he talks about some of the little specifics, like we got a little bit more length. In other words, Elijah, maybe they're realizing, hey, we've got our talented guys. Let's go get guys that are a couple of inches taller, a little bit bigger wingspan, but that might provide the same speed, the same abilities, and just those little tweaks that you recognize over the course of a season. But at the same time, I bet it is really weird. I mean, they've gotten over it now, but he throwing out all those 5-year names. That's
guys over there really, for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just that's something to think about too, in terms of just that level of stability and veteran presence that you've had, and having to kind of retrain some of that. but I know, from hearing from Clayton, the last couple of times that you don't always get a lot from Clayton in terms of like rah excitement, but I think you can tell that he knows he's got some pieces to work with.
Oh, absolutely. And I think really it's finding fit and role. I think that's such a big thing right now too. And that's why maybe adding a Damon Clowney to that room too, brings out a little more in everybody else from a competitive standpoint. But look, having guys who, can excel at the pass rush or are great, on run defense and being able to mix and match a lot of those. That's another theme, I guess, of the spring is mixing and matching, but finding out who steps up, because that's the one exciting thing about this team right now with this defense in the spring is the opportunity that's there for a lot of those guys is because of all the spots that are vacated now with all the guys that are going to be playing in the NFL starting here really soon. And you got a good mix of guys that are recruits out of high school and transfer guys that have been productive somewhere else, or someone like, like Sean Murphy's interesting, right? Because he was a guy at Florida State. Injuries kind of derailed his time a little bit, but when he finally got to play the last 4 games of the year, he got better each and every game. I am so excited to see exactly what type of growth he made from the positive momentum that he had in those last 4 games at Florida State to what he can apply here and how he can kind of take that to the next level. There's a lot of guys that have just like seriously untapped potential. And on the defensive line, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy is the biggest name for me because that's a guy, that was one of the more highly sought after recruits out of high school, a legit blue chip recruit. Wasn't able to get, on the field as much as I know he probably wanted to at Texas A&M, but has an opportunity here with a defensive line room that is completely made up of a lot of fresh faces and guys who maybe don't have a ton of experience in the SEC. He's got an opportunity to come in and be able to secure that job. And then maybe if he has a big year, we're talking about him as a draft prospect again. All it takes is one breakout year, right? I mean, you can have a couple of years where you're not able to get on the field, but you can fulfill a lot of your promise you had coming out of high school with the same type of year that guys like, TJ Sanders had last year, or on the, on the edge, like Kyle Kennard had last year. It elevates a lot of what your prospect is at the next level.
One more here from Shane, cut number 2 on our list here. And again, thank you, Tyler Head, for cutting these up as Shane was doing his thing today. A lot of coaches like this. I remember Steve Spurrier wanting to even have scrimmages at the stadium. Maybe the girlfriend's out there, their mom's here. Just they play a little bit better. Here's Shane Beamer on some of the younger guys playing in front of a crowd.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we're doing a spring game, so we can try and acclimate them to that, because for so many of these guys, it will be the biggest crowd they've ever played in front of in their life. And to be able to expose that to them, is it going to be the same as going into Atlanta and playing on national television in 100 and whatever, I think we're at 140 days or a little over 140? No, but it's a lot closer than what it is going into a stadium without anybody in there. So certainly that's good experience for them. The freshmen, the newcomers, whoever it may be, the specialists, to be able to kick and punt and snap and hold and catch punts in front of a big crowd under the lights, they need that. And we're certainly going to do that as much as we can on Friday night also. As far as what I've told them, nothing at this point. I'll reiterate to them what we talked about the first time we went in the stadium a couple of weeks ago for our first scrimmage, that one, it's an honor to get to play in that stadium on that field, and making sure they have great gratitude about being able to go compete in Williams-Brice Stadium. I'll reiterate that to them, but really just have fun. Spring game is an opportunity to go compete and go get better, but have fun. But at the end of the day, you're trying to win the game for your team and be the best you can be. So I'll just reiterate that to them, and making sure they understand that have fun. They've earned the right to put on a uniform and go in that stadium on Friday night. But at the same time, don't lose sight of, what's important, and that's going out there and just doing your job and making plays.
I will say it's going to be pretty cool. I don't know how many, typically a Carolina spring game has 20, 25, maybe 30,000 in some years, but under the lights, with everything that Williams-Brice holds, will also be an interesting experience and indoctrination for some of these guys, that when they're in their pads and helmets, Elijah, as opposed to, with a credential as a recruit on the sideline during the game. So, it'll be a little bit different there. All right, lots more to do. On the other side of the break, we'll get into our drive around the SEC. Baseball, a big portal edition for one of the better teams in the league. And we'll let you hear what Shane had to say on the Nico Iamaleava situation. This is the Postgame Show.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you, they're causing some issues on the roadways. One over at Bluff Road, Highway 48 near Highway 16 and Rosewood Drive. Got just one on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at I-20. I had two earlier. We have two on 20. One on 20 eastbound after Spears Creek Church Road near exit 82. The other 20 westbound before Monticello Road exit 68. Also have accidents on Mineral Springs Road at Cedar Road and Cromer Road. Monticello Road at Highway 215 near Winterwood Road. And lastly, one on US 176 at Broad River Road and Greystone Boulevard.
All right, welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you on this Tuesday. It is time for our drive around the SEC. Yours truly in Hilton Head ahead of the Heritage. Elijah back home in the Herndon Chevy Studios. We'll start with a quick bit of football news. This is a good one, Elijah, I think, for Arch Manning and Texas. Isaiah Bond out the door, obviously, on his way to the NFL. I'm not saying that this is a like for like at wide receiver, but Texas announcing Stanford wide receiver Emmett Mosley will transfer into the program. He has 3 years left, and you may say, all right, great, Stanford won 3 games last year. Well, Emmett Mosley was the best freshman receiver in the ACC last year, and on a not-so-good team, had 48 catches for 525 yards and 6 touchdowns. So,
and that's him as the number 2 receiver. Because Manor is the number 1 receiver on that team, and he's going to be maybe a top 3 round draft pick.
Yeah. So nice portal get for Texas. And speaking of which, I don't know where this guy's going to go, but California running back Jaden Ott, who in his 3 seasons with the Golden Bears has more than 3,400 all-purpose yards and did have a 1,000-yard rushing season, is leaving Cal. And one of the reports I read said that the Bears did all they could to fight off, quote, strong SEC interest. So I guess that means he's not going to transfer within the Big Ten. And again, I don't know if the Big Ten has, I should look this up. I should know, so I apologize. I don't know if the Big Ten has the same type of rule that the Southeastern Conference has, which is if you enter the spring football portal, you cannot play the following season in the Southeastern Conference. So you'd have to wait a year if you were to transfer within. So again, I don't know if the Big Ten has the same deal or not, but regardless, the reports out of Berkeley said that they were fighting off strong SEC interest. So I agree, Elijah, based on some of the film that I saw this morning and looking at his stats, he is a dude. And in 2023, he was first team all Pac-12. Obviously last year, RIP, there was no Pac-12.
There was none.
Should be.
It'll never be the same again.
Should be.
The Frankenstein,
but there was
the Frankenstein's monster that it's creating, afterwards, still not going to be the same as the original Pac-12.
Yeah,
it's dead.
So, not telling you this guy is the next Marshawn Lynch, who was a great California Golden Bear, but I mean, I'll take 3,400 plus all-purpose yards in 3 seasons.
Hey, Jay Knott was a dude, man. That guy can play.
He's good, man. The difference is at this point, now it's one thing for a freshman to leave Stanford, but man, you're leaving Stanford. But if I only got 1 year left at Cal,
finish that degree, man.
I'm gonna play at Cal, man. That's a school. So, but maybe he goes back, right, and finishes it up. Who knows? We'll see. But there you go. A couple of football notes. Baseball tonight. Tennessee is hosting Bellarmine. I was just asking you, where's Bellarmine? Isn't that up that way somewhere?
That is in Louisville.
Bellarmine. Oh, okay. Oh, you told me that. Okay.
They play their basketball games at Freedom Hall.
So Bellarmine's in Louisville.
Correct.
Bellarmine is not in Louisville.
That's right. Bellarmine
that's what you're telling
Louisville, but it is not in Louisville.
Okay, got you. Thank you for that.
They're
playing on Tuesday. They're playing on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
now you're speaking proper English, Jay Phillips.
In Knoxville.
In Knoxville, yeah. Like all of this, you have to say like you have like a mouthful of marbles.
Yeah, and Knoxville's in Tennessee, so I'm getting there.
Yeah, you're learning the vernacular.
I'm getting there. Thank you. I'm doing what I can. Auburn is at Jacksonville State. That's in Alabama somewhere. I know that much.
That is in Alabama.
Probably in Jacksonville. Let's see. Tarleton travels to Texas A&M. When did they drop State? They're not Tarleton State anymore?
I believe they're just. I thought they were still just Tarleton State.
This says Tarleton. The SEC website says Tarleton. Of course, the SEC website the other day told us that Arkansas State beat Arkansas.
Yeah, it's got 2 scores wrong.
Stetson will be at Florida. I know Stetson is in Florida. I believe it's in DeLand, Florida.
It is in DeLand, Florida. Fighting Jacob DeGroms.
There you go. Southern will be at Mississippi State, Georgia, and Georgia Tech tonight at Truist. So that'll be fun. I thought my daughter was going to go to that, but apparently she's not. She didn't want to make the drive down the Atlanta highway. So maybe next time.
I can't.
Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are playing baseball. Why? I thought they quit everything.
I thought
What's
it was
the deal,
illegal
Elijah?
for them to play now. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are they playing? I mean, what? No.
Someone
No.
should inform Brent Venables that you can do this.
Yeah. This is ridiculous.
Or Mike Gundy.
No. I am not here for that.
They should be alerted because I mean they're the ones who say you can't do it. So
yeah, no, I kid because I care, but you can absolutely. Again, I'll tell everybody real quick how easy it is. I do this a lot, but it's a PSA because I'm here for the kids. All right, I'm here for the kids. This is how easy it is to schedule somebody that you aren't currently scheduled to play. You pick up a phone, or you could even text these days if you want, kids.
Email. Fax.
Yeah, sure. And you say, hey, it's me from school A. Would you like to play a game against us? And then you wait for school B to go, yes, we would. Okay. And how about this date? That sounds nice. We'll see you then. And that's the polite way to do it.
Boom.
That's how easy it is. It is not any harder than that. I guarantee it is not any harder than that.
That easy.
Guaranteed. Just telling.
Easy lines of communications. We have so many ways to communicate. You can even MySpace message them if you want to.
Hey, you know what? And I mean, Stillwater and Norman, probably like an hour apart. Just drive over and say, what's up?
Go get some
Take
dinner.
them to lunch.
Yeah.
That's not hard. Miami of Ohio will be at Kentucky tonight. Missouri State is at Missouri. Boy, that's some bad baseball. UAB.
Max Scherzer ain't walking through that door.
UAB at Bama. Arkansas Pine Bluff will be in Fayetteville to take on the Hogs. Lipscomb at Vandy. Where's Lipscomb? That's up that
Nashville.
way. That is in Nashville or Nashville?
Nashville.
I don't know which one.
Yeah, Nashville. Right off Granny White Parkway.
Also Tennessee?
Yeah, right? Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah.
Tennessee. Okay.
Nashville.
Again, I'm just
Vanderbilt might be Nashville. They're not all from
okay. I don't know. Yeah, I get you. The University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. That's a mouthful.
That is. And it's a school.
That's a big sweatshirt too, man. Especially if they spell the whole thing out. They'll be in Austin tonight. McNeese State, we know all about them. They'll be at LSU. Little Rock will be at Ole Miss. Those are tonight's games. And, of course, South Carolina taking on the Citadel in Columbia. That's a 6:30 start as South Carolina looks to try to get something, Elijah Campbell, back on track baseball-wise. But, again, I urge you, if you are a Carolina baseball fan especially, check out our YouTube page or our podcast page and hear what the great John Whittle had to say today about what's going on around Gamecock baseball. It might not be something you want to hear, but dare I say, is this fair, Elijah? It is something that fans probably need to hear when it comes to what's going on around Carolina baseball right now.
It depends on the person listening's willingness to come to grips with reality. Some people don't. Some people don't want to do that. That's fine. Some people choose to not take the red pill. Use the Matrix example. Some people choose not to, and will live their simulations and for the rest of their happy lives. But if you do wish to go down the rabbit hole and hear the truth of Gamecock baseball, John Whittle is the best source to do so, and highly recommend going back to listen to that.
How many college courses are there on the Matrix and Alice in Wonderland being like intertwined?
Being very similar stories, yeah.
I would like to take that course.
I would too. Somebody teaches it somewhere. A lot of colleges here in America. Somebody's offered that.
Yeah, but I mean, those, it's weird, man. I love the Matrix movies. I can't do the Disney Alice in Wonderland. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Disney one, like is that
the cartoon one from one from long ago, not the remake, which I never saw. Should I?
Honestly, I haven't seen it, so I wouldn't be a good authority on that. But Alice in Wonderland is just one of those movies I didn't watch as a kid. It's never in the Disney rotation.
It's weird, man. I don't know. Anyway, all right, there you go. There's a little pop culture drive around the SEC for you. Come back. What did Shane Beamer think of the Nico Iamaleava situation? We'll let you hear what the head coach had to say when the postgame show returns. All right, welcome back in. Postgame show rolling on. Final few minutes here. Gamecock baseball coming your way inside of a half hour. Derek Scott and Coach Stuart Lake on the call. The Gamecocks and the Citadel, 6:30 is the first pitch tonight from the Ray. In the meantime, Coach Beamer speaking today, and obviously the college football world, I wouldn't say rocked. It might depend. Tennessee's world was rocked a little bit as Nico Iamaleava and his dad decided, I don't know, Elijah, you and I were talking about it. This word is too strong, but I do think it comes close. I think they tried to extort Tennessee. I genuinely do. Tennessee is not quite the same kind of victim as some extortion victims might be. But at the same time, Nico and his dad knew what they were doing, especially Nico's dad. Like, hey, let's go 11th hour here. And, hey, it's spring game's up, and if not, we'll transfer, pay us our money. And Tennessee said no. So, again, it was an attempt at a form of extortion. I'll stand by that.
Putting them in a corner, yeah, extortion.
Yeah. I really do believe that. But again, I'm also with those who say no winners here. I know a lot of folks said, "Oh, Tennessee's the winner here because they get rid of that guy and they stood their ground." Both of those things are true. And I think Tennessee has recruited well at quarterback, but we're certainly ready to go to the next season with Nico at the helm. There's no doubt about that. Excuse me. But at the same time, college football world is responding, I think, mostly in favor of Tennessee. Shane Beamer was asked about that today, and you were in there, Elijah. So before we set it up, maybe give us a little more of the context of how it came up during the press conference.
That was just, one of the questions that someone had, and then, asked the question of, what are your thoughts on the situation? How closely you monitored it, and what is, does this mean anything, like for your program where other coaches are dealing with it? And this is Shane's kind of response to his thoughts on the entire situation.
I'll be careful here, Elijah. I would wonder through the recruiting process, be it high school or portal, if a red flag wouldn't go up maybe with certain parents. And I don't just mean for Shane. And maybe it did or didn't, for Josh Heupel, with the Iamaleavas. I don't know, and again, I'm not trying to say, well, hey, just avoid that kind of person altogether. That doesn't necessarily, what a father might do might not be what a kid might do, or vice versa. I don't know. But I just, Nico got a lot of money up front, and I just wonder what that was like. And to Shane's point, looking through the lens towards Josh Heupel, they clearly didn't see this coming, and so you got caught off guard. Because all the stories out of Knoxville on Friday were like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe the Thursday story was true, but we didn't know he was going to hold out. And I just wonder now what kind of warning flag that raises across the country. You know what I mean? In terms of
Right.
just really making sure that we're dealing with someone on the up and up the entire time. Again, it's not a matter of going to ask for more money. It's the timing and the method that you use
Right.
in this case.
And
That's the problem.
Yeah, and I don't know if anything like that is identifiable in the recruiting process, but I mean,
Right.
the one thing that you can do, and that's one thing Shane's told us when we've had him on, is that you just look for guys who love football. That where football's their motivation, right? Not just money. Because I don't want to paint like a picture that everybody's bag grabbing. I mean, that's part of the deal, right? I mean, if people are offering you money for your services, yeah, money's going to be naturally a part of that. The same way naturally money is going to be a part of any job decision anybody else outside of sports makes, right? What you're going to make monetarily is going to drive a little bit of your decision. And for some people, it's all the decision. For some people, it's not. And find the people where it's not the entire motivation and that
Right.
they love football enough to make that their motivating factor, then that's something that can maybe help you avoid something like this. But even then, you could still get blindsided.
I think it's very unfortunate for all involved. But I do think a lesson was learned across the college football landscape. So we'll see. Good stuff today. Thank you, John Whittle. Appreciate him being a part of it. Thanks to all of you. Elijah Campbell, good stuff, sir. I'll be out on the course tomorrow following the Pro-Am. Looking forward to tomorrow's show from here on Hilton Head. We'll see you then.